I'm April Kroner. I'm the Deputy Director of Economic Development for the City of Tempe. Came on board a little over a year ago, originally from Wisconsin, so you may hear the northern accent come out a few times, and then spent about 4 years in Colorado prior to making the move over to Arizona. I also did want to introduce Lisa Howe. She's sitting over here in the blue jacket. Lisa is one of our program managers. She just joined our team about a month and a half ago. Originally from the U.S., spent maybe 20 years or so in Canada doing economic development work. So we're really excited to have her here. I would normally have her do this presentation, but she's recovering from a cold, so it would not be good for her to be up here talking. So I want to thank you all for having us here, and hopefully I can let you know some things that are going on in Tempe that will just help you understand our community, the growth we're seeing, and how it may impact what all of you are doing within this larger region. Understand that most of you are probably residential brokers, correct? Yes. Okay, so as you know, in Tempe, we maybe don't have a lot of new homes coming on the market. We are landlocked, so there's not a lot of room for that. However, I'm sure you're seeing existing homes that come for sale, things along those lines. So hopefully this will help you see all the commercial, industrial office activity that we have going on in our community that I think will be very exciting for continued residential sales in Tempe and the area surrounding us. So with that, I'll just give you some background really quick about Tempe, just some things, some of the general stats that you may or may not be familiar with. Population around 194,000 people. What's interesting about that is our workforce, if you look at that, is about 210,000 people on a daily basis. So we actually bring in quite a bit in terms of people coming in for jobs in the city of Tempe. You'll also see related to that we are the #1 net importer of jobs throughout the greater Phoenix region. So again, a lot of people driving in to come to Tempe to work and going to live elsewhere. We have a very low median age comparatively, obviously with ASU, the main campus that really drives that, but I think we do also see a lot of those, the younger population tends to stay in Tempe even after graduation. So just about 30 for the age. Median income around 76,000, and 50% of our population has a bachelor's degree or higher. So those are a few of the highlights about the city of Tempe. Now we're going to get into some of the things that we have happening in Tempe. So the list here identifies some of the retail and restaurant wings, as we call them, that will be coming into Tempe or have recently opened up in Tempe. So some of these may be in the Novus corridor that ASU owns, which you may be familiar with, such as Blanco and Flower Child, Blue Sushi Sake Grill. We've also got some great things happening on Mill Avenue in our downtown. Filthy Animal is going through a soft opening right now. That's on Mill. They're out there on social media quite a bit, so you may want to check that out. Really cool concept, and I think they'll fully open in a couple more weeks here. And then we've got some other retailers like a Sam's Club opening up over by Tempe Marketplace. We've got Rivian EV sales. But again, I think you'll start to see a lot of these restaurants. That seems to be a big focus of both ASU and Tempe, with kind of re-envisioning some of the things along Mill Avenue. Relative to office and industrial wins, we've had a pretty exciting, yes.
Will you be open to sharing this deck after, so we don't
Certainly.
Have to take pictures of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
not a problem at all. In fact, I did already send the deck over,
awesome.
So that can just be shared out to all of you. So
Thank you.
have that.
Thank you.
No problem. Office and industrial wins. Tempe has really had some great companies coming in, and A lot of the deals that you see up here are things that we worked on in 2024 that are now underway to open up in 2025. So I'm going to highlight a few of these because they are pretty substantial. Dutch Brothers is opening a regional headquarters here. As you can see, their average wage about $60,000, CapEx about $41 million. They're going to have about 500 jobs. That's huge, being brought into Tempe. So if you're familiar with Dutch Brothers at all, they're out of Grants Pass, Oregon. They are going to keep their headquarters in Grants Pass, but they're taking about 40% of that workforce and moving them here to Tempe and then continuing to grow that. So pretty exciting thing to have them do their search and wind up right here. Another one that has been recently announced, and they won't do their formal announcement with total number of final job numbers and things until early fall, but Lego, they'll be opening a customer service center in Arizona in our Tempe location in a building that's called The Bean on Farmer. Really cool building if you haven't ever checked it out. So excited to be bringing them in, and again, you'll hear more on that this fall when they're going through their grand opening. They are starting to do some hiring already. Yes?
Quick question, go back to Dutch Brothers. Is Tempe the first regional headquarters, or do they have other regional headquarters throughout the U.S.?
This will be their main headquarters.
Okay.
Like, how do I say this? They're
Outside.
keeping their headquarters in Grants Pass, but then we will be the largest office space that they have.
Got it, okay, thank
If that
you.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they're really committed to Grants Pass. That's where they started, that's where they grew. So they wanted to keep that. They're actually doing some things with a portion of their building that they won't be using anymore, donated it to the city, so they can do some programming out of it. So I don't want to take that away from Grants Pass. We will not be the headquarters, but when you look at the rest of the U.S., we will be their largest facility overall.
Got it.
So Lego coming in, customer service positions. Right now they're anticipating about 256 jobs. Cognite is opening up a global headquarters here. Cognite does AI for industrial software. That's their main function. They're actually relocating their headquarters from Oslo, Norway, here to Tempe. So one of the things I like to point out on this one is 250 jobs, but that wage, their average wage is $175,000. So talk about high quality jobs coming in, that's pretty substantial. Another one that will be a big thing coming up in the near future is what we call NatCast. So are all of you familiar or hear about Chips for America and the semiconductor industry and how things are booming here? So a site in ASU's research center was recently selected out of a nationwide search to be one of 3 flagship research and development centers. And so there'll be the one here in Tempe, one in New York, and one in Silicon Valley. So right now they're working on getting all of their building plans going, but what that'll be, about the 300 jobs. So it looks like it's not, huge in job creation, especially when you look at, their CapEx that they're putting into this site, $3.1 billion in just building machinery and equipment. I think what we will see from this is people coming from all over the U.S. and even the world to look at what they have going on in this facility to help with R&D. And I think we'll see a lot of spin-off, a lot of growth, secondary locations opening up so that companies can be close to this R&D facility. And they'll focus on advanced packaging. So what you see with like Amcor is already in that advanced packaging area. So pretty exciting, but they're not going to be fully operational until 2028. But what that does mean in the meantime is a lot of people coming in, a lot of construction crews. It's a pretty substantial build to do this kind of a facility. We've got AIDC, that's a Taiwanese company. This will actually be their first manufacturing facility in the U.S. They have an office location in Chandler. So very excited there. They're really involved in Department of Defense type work and are one of 2 Taiwanese companies that can actually build for the U.S. federal government. So they'll be coming here. Goosehead Insurance is going to be locating their regional headquarters. One that I get very excited about, Branded Bills, a local Arizona company started by 4 gentlemen, and they're currently located in Phoenix. They were built in Arizona, and they have seen substantial growth over the past few years, just like doubling and doubling and doubling. So they needed more space. So they're currently getting things ready at a location in Tempe, and they're hoping that that can serve them well for the next several years and accommodate a lot of their growth. So happy to be keeping them here in our greater Phoenix region. A couple others, OfferPad, again at the Beam on Farmer, and then Setna IO, and that one is about 142 jobs and average wage around at 72,000. So again, from our standpoint, we're looking at bringing in a lot of new jobs. So I think that will bode well for the region overall and for Tempe, and really help you guys see some sales in terms of the residential market happening here. Let's see what's coming up. A lot of these projects are things that the city is working on, so on city-owned property. Not all of them, but the majority. You may have heard the city of Tempe is really focused on affordable housing right now. Housing overall, we're bringing in about 8,700 new units right now, so that are either in the process or they're permitted and getting built. So a lot of new housing units. The majority, well, all of that is going to be multifamily rentals. So just wanted to let you know with that. South Pier, that one is still in the works development. That's been happening for quite a while, and hopefully we'll start to see more progress there. I'll just hit on a few of these. Tempe Depot, we will keep the depot, so those of you interested in historic preservation, we are not getting rid of the depot. But next to that site will be a mixed-use redevelopment, hotel and residential, and possibly a little bit of office as well. Right downtown, I'm working with a developer, it's called 101 East 6th. If you guys are familiar with the mosque area in downtown Tempe, and then there's the First Congregational Church. This will be right adjacent to those 2 properties. This will be about a 29-story residential development. So it'll be a big change. I mean, we are seeing a lot of that, population density and height in our downtown, but this is going to be one of the largest that we'll see in that area. They hope to be getting underway this August, and they will have some ground floor retail with that as well. Apache Central will be, it's over on our Apache corridor all along the light rail. That will be mixed use, grocery store, and primarily affordable housing. Again, really trying to take advantage of it being along the light rail and providing that access, easy access for people. Hayden Flour Mill, that one I know everybody's interested in what's happening at Hayden Flour Mill. We are still in talks with the developer on that, but I would say right now things have slowed down, so I don't think we'll see any movement on that anytime soon. Yes.
So all of those are rentals?
On the 101 East 6.
Well, I mean, in general, your new units really
yes,
the majority of them are rentals. They're not going to be like condos or anything.
Right.
Okay.
So I would say there is, one development or one developer that I'm talking with that is looking at doing a for sale single-family condo development, which would be along the waterfront, which would be really, really cool. But that does have to go through the entire entitlement process. So it's just at the early stages. So we'll see if that happens. But everything else, yes, multifamily rental projects.
And remind me, where is South Pier located?
South Pier is going to be, trying to think, do you see where like the big tall residential units are going up right now with the cranes on the south side of the waterfront?
Would that be east or west of rural?
East of rural.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
South Pier is the one that in the past they've identified like, oh, we're going to put a big Ferris wheel out here. No guarantees the Ferris wheel is going to happen, but they are moving ahead with the residential, and then there will.
Oh, really? The Ferris?
Not sure the Ferris wheel will be
happening. I've been in Tempe 38 years. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm looking forward to that.
So Not sure. The reason for that is Ferris wheels are extremely expensive, and they're only manufactured like at a couple places in the world. So right now it's about the feasibility financially, if that can be brought in or not. Yes.
So going back to the affordable housing piece and the rentals, do we know what the rental rate will be for these developments once they come online?
Once they come online, we will. We'll know a little bit before that even. So a lot of these are going to be financed with LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits, and they'll probably be those 4% projects. So they're going to have, have to keep it at within certain rent rates. So those things, that will all be public information. Once it gets out there, you'll be able to see all of that as they come online.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, Apache Central, on that one we were looking for about 50 to 90% of that to be affordable housing, and we're probably going to see more of that 80-90%. We're currently going through the selection process for a developer on that site. But based on our proposals, I think that's what we're going to see. So there will be some market rate units, and we did want that. We want a true mixed-use development, so we have a mix of incomes within our buildings. So that's something we're trying to be a proponent of. The TPAC, that's the former Tempe Performing Arts Center, downtown Tempe. That one will also be like a high-density, mixed-use, affordable housing. On that one, we were only looking for about 20% affordable units, the rest to be market rate. It's looking right now like it's going to kind of be flipped from that. We're going to see a lot more affordable, fewer market rate. We're looking at getting some commercial space as well for city offices in that, and then ground floor retail. And then North Tempe, Food City Plaza, the city just acquired that site. I think it was last August. So right now we have the units that are currently in there, the commercial entities, and we'll continue to keep those in there. We're figuring about 2 years before those units are all taken out, and then we move ahead with redevelopment.
Is that the one that off of McCullough's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's that site, and that one will be affordable housing, some mixed use, also looking at a grocer. We're finding in some of these areas we need to retain a grocery store of some sort, so that they have easy access. So grocery, and then also police training facility will be on that site. Yes.
How does the LIHTC with the commercial side of it work? Are they going to be like affordable for the business owners that are going in there as well, or is that just a regular retail piece of real estate within the affordable?
Yep, just regular piece of real estate from the commercial standpoint. The LIHTC only applies to the housing units. So, yes, the low-income housing tax credits is, they have to, however many units, between that 30 to 80%. So the commercial piece doesn't fall into that. There are some things, like for instance with Apache Central and what you'll see in the future on TPAC, that we make it a little bit more enticing for commercial, because the city of Tempe will continue to own that land. So then those commercial units aren't having to pay property tax on the land, if that makes sense.
Is that the part where they have in between like Rural and McCullough and on the south side, over where like the faux thing is and the other little Mercado?
Oh, in terms of where this location is for the North Tempe, it's off of Scottsdale Road and McClintock.
Okay.
So kind of like that southeast corner.
Okay, got it.
You mean McCullough's?
Or
McCullough's.
McCullough's, yes. Sorry.
I was like, wait, let's both go this way.
McClintock becomes different parts of it.
Well, you're doing a development there, because I've spoken with those business owners that Tempe did come in and purchase that piece of it.
Did, yes.
Right. So that's why I was asking what was going in that, because I know that they're doing some other development in that area. So that's why I'm asking, is that what that is?
That's what that is. So that existing structure will come down in the future. So we are currently working with the existing businesses that are in that strip center. They can keep their leases. Again, we're looking at, almost up to 2 years. If they don't want to keep their location there, maybe they want it for a year, we can help them find where to go and help, give them some funding to get relocated. So we want to try to keep those businesses operating as well, and help them make a move that's going to make sense for them. Yes?
If Light Tech goes away, does that put some of these projects at risk?
Yes. 100% it would. So, yes.
And what is going on with the Daniel Plaza? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Daniel Plaza, I was hoping I could skip.
I know. But I know it's by there, and there's so much controversy, so it's over fill us in as much as you can.
That one has been just an interesting piece because it's a condominium ownership and there's numerous owners in there. So a developer has been working to buy out a lot of the owners there, but there have been some that have held out, which is causing a lot of contention. There's also, from the neighborhood standpoint, there's a lot of art in that Donnell Plaza area and a lot of history with it. So right now it's working with the existing developers and the city to figure out, how do we retain some of that eclectic kind of flavor on that site and pull it into the redevelopment. Are there pieces that can be reused? How do we set it up for future art?
And is there not a timeline to wrap that up?
There is not a timeline on that, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah. And that one as well, relative to, the housing, we're kind of going back and forth with the developer on that, affordable market rate, and looking at what's going to work in the financial markets for them. So.
Do you guys see a lot of pushback from the surrounding neighborhoods and?
Yes. Yeah, with Donnell Plaza, we get people showing up at most council meetings, even though it's not an agenda item, but people just wanting to voice their concerns with how that site is going to be redeveloped and losing that site. So again, I think it's really in this stage of the final pieces need to be acquired by the developer. Some of those holdouts, they've got to work on that. The city's not involved in that piece. And then it's, how do they, the developer, move forward with something that's going to be something that the community can continue to embrace from that artistic side. I think the city's going to want to continue to see that as well and support the developer bringing some of those elements into their redevelopment project.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Another one that's not on here, but I will just give you a quick update. Priest Yard, formerly you may have heard it as the Tempe Entertainment District, where the Coyotes were going to go. This city is currently working on brownfields cleanup of that property, so we did just recently receive a grant to do final site assessment there. And then by the end of summer, early fall, we should have alternatives available in terms of how we approach cleanup of that site. We've still got to work out funding for that. And then we'll also be starting that conceptual planning at that time for what could go on to that site. And hopefully sometime in 2026, we'll be marketing that. We do our property sales through requests for proposals. So hopefully 2026 we'll see that and maybe see some activity happen on that property. So, and get the cleanup underway in 26 as well. So. Lastly, Mill Avenue refresh. You may have been into downtown Tempe and it can be a little bit tough to maneuver 2024 and 2025, but much in need of that refresh. Hasn't been done since the 1980s. I believe the Pope was here and the city redid Mill Avenue for that. So it's been a while. So hopefully we'll see that wrap up the end of this year and it will just have a much better aesthetic down there. And we are working to fill some of those vacant spaces, getting some higher end restaurants in, so we'll see a little bit more diversity. Also working on some additional retail, trying to bring that into Mill Avenue as well. And last, just want to let you know that it doesn't impact all of you as much, but as you are out there and working with businesses, I think one of the things that we are really working hard to do is retain our existing businesses, and we want to get out there and support them more. So we're going to take more of a proactive approach to meet with businesses. We're going to be starting out with our largest employers, largest capital investments, and getting to know them, making sure they have what they need to continue to be successful in Tempe. We'll also work with any medium and small sized businesses as well, and are really going to try to market that and contact us if they have any concerns. And those small, medium businesses are the ones that really have that opportunity for growth. So how can we help them continue to grow and stay either in Tempe or within our greater Phoenix area? So it's not something we've been this ambitious about in the past, but we're really excited because you tend to see all the new companies, look at this is new, and then after that wears off, it can kind of go away. But I think we want to show the existing businesses that we're here to support them, and we wouldn't be the community we are without them. So we want to continue to offer that support and look for ways to provide programming that helps them with their workforce, access to capital, etc. And special bond election. This was from the November election. Tempe residents did pass all three of these bond measures. So a little over $300 million for enhancing community safety through public safety and roadway improvements, and $248 million to improve the quality of life in Tempe neighborhoods. Between those two, one of the things you may have heard about is capital improvements to the roads, like streets, sidewalks, bike lanes, pedestrian infrastructure. And the city of Tempe saying it would take us 10 years to do this normally through a standard capital improvements program, but if we pass this bond election, we'll get it done in 5. So you'll see a lot of activity happening. Road construction and pedestrian infrastructure. It's already there.
It's been there.
It's probably going to get worse, but the idea is that everything throughout the city can be brought up, improved much more quicker. So hopefully we'll do that, and then increasing the supply of affordable housing, $32 million. That. Yes.
I have a question. So I work with a lot of ASU families, and obviously housing is an issue for a lot of students once they finish their freshman year of the dorm experience, and the rent prices are a little to look at, especially when they have to have 3 times the income just to qualify to live there. So you're in, co-signers. What percentage of that affordable housing are they going to be looking at for students attending? Or
the
does that not
affordable
matter?
housing, a student would be able to go into that affordable housing as long as they meet those income restrictions. So it wouldn't be closed off to students.
Okay.
That's kind of what you're looking at. I mean, it's not going to be your formal student housing that some developers are out there, and that's what they specialize in.
Right.
They're doing like the atmosphere. It's a student housing, but those rents are pretty high, for what you get and things. But the affordable units, maybe won't have all the bells and whistles, but students would be able to go into those units as long as they're meeting that in that 30 to 80% range. Probably going to have some more room to work on how much income do you need, things like that.
And you said earlier that most of the ones that are going in are just going to be for rent. I know a lot of the students, especially the graduate students, they're looking to purchase in the area, and that's one of the frustrations that they keep running into is that they're, it's just more rentals going up all the time. That's like a really big need, especially when, like you said, you're landlocked and can't build, too many new things. So if there is any feedback you go back and give them, that's what I'm hearing from my clients that I work with is like, where is the condos we can purchase? Like, it's fine that it's high rise and all that, but we like to purchase it and invest in it versus pay the rent.
And I think, relative to the condo market, that's been a really tough one. You probably haven't seen a lot of new condos going up just because they're so difficult to finance, and then there's all the construction issues. But like I said, hopefully we'll see one of those. Now I wouldn't, if the project that I'm in talks with moves ahead, I wouldn't see that being for students because it's going to be more your luxury, high-end condos.
Along the waterfront, the ones you mentioned,
like the South Pier.
Yeah, so I think that's where you know, honestly, it will be tough for Tempe unless we can get into some of those existing neighborhoods and, you know, do some rebuilds. You know, if that might be a potential, you know, another area. I'm just trying to think. I don't think we don't really have any plans for it, but the County Island. I mean, it's a little bit removed, but that is an opportunity for new development there. If that ever, you know, gets annexed in the future, and perhaps some sort of condo development could go there.
Yeah, it's just tough for first-time home buyers out there. It really is for that area.
Yeah, it is. I know myself. I couldn't buy in Tempe.
Yeah,
I can't buy anywhere else. You know, so I'm renting, and I'm hoping things come down a little bit in the near future. But yeah, Tempe especially is really tough with that because even the older homes are
now
still keeping that value is up so high.
And I think that's because of the distance to ASU and the location. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just, you know, it's just hard to want people to want to stay in the city when they can't afford to stay in the city.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that you're hearing that students want to be able to invest.
Yeah.
Because I think what we're hearing a lot more is the development community coming in and saying, how can we provide like a lower end rental product that's, you know, already furnished, doesn't have the pools, all of that. But that's not what you're hearing out there at all.
Not at all.
Well, no one's gonna make money with that, so.
You've got plenty of those already.
Okay.
Is the feeling that I'm getting from a lot of people.
How did
is
they
that,
get into that first time?
Yeah.
So one thing, and this would take a while to happen, but it is something we are looking at. We have what's called the Tempe Industrial Development Authority, the Tempe IDA. You may have heard about Phoenix having an IDA, Tucson having an IDA. So basically what those entities do is they're able to issue private activity bonds to finance larger projects. What happens with those, and affordable housing is one of them, but then the IDA makes money, generates revenue off of that, and then they're able to put that back into the community. So what we're seeing in Phoenix and Tucson is, you know, first-time home buyer assistance that they're able to provide through their IDAs. So, you know, while we might not be able to maybe build the new housing, how can we as a city provide more, you know, more opportunities for people to have access to it. So that is one of the things that we're looking at. Our IDA has not been very active in the past, but we are hoping through 2025 we will get more active and start generating revenue from taking on more projects. And I know a couple of our council members are interested in just that. How do we help homeowners? How do we help people get into their first homes? So, yes.
Does Tempe have a problem with the water issue within the state, and that's the reason for all the rentals in a sense? I know that obviously we're landlocked on that end, but I do know that there has been the reason for the rental piece of it is because of the water. We're not able to open up a lot of water to build those.
So what I would say, honestly, with Tempe is we are kind of averse to any of the water issues. We've got a strong infrastructure in place. I'll give you an example. NatCast, the facility, the R&D facility that's looking at going here is going to need about 1 million gallons per day when they're fully operational. And that's one of the things is they're looking in different locations. Can people supply that amount of water? In Tempe, we have an infinite supply. We don't have any issues, so we can take on any of those companies, like in that semiconductor type industry. You know, we have to be smart about it, but at the same time, we're not worried about our water supply at all. So a lot of it too, you know, we're not pulling from some of the areas like the communities out west side of Phoenix are pulling from different watersheds. So we're not. Again, we're going to be cautious about all of those things, but there's that 100-year water supply assurance is required for all new development projects.
Is that required for rentals though? I've heard that you do not need the 100-year water guarantee for rentals.
That I am not certain
In construction.
for the rentals. But what I would say is, again, with our water supply and where we get it from, our our public works engineers are not concerned in any which way about the water supply that we have here in Tempe. So, yes.
Is that Tempe Marketplace, is that 100% occupied? What's the occupancy rate there?
I actually don't keep tabs on occupancy out at Tempe Marketplace, so I'm not sure if they're
If you had to guess,
100%.
90?
If I had to guess, just from being out there, yeah, I feel like probably 90-ish. Tempe Marketplace has been doing great.
Yeah.
A lot of activity out there, and that's the area now that Sam's Club is going to be.
Portillo's is
Where's the
one.
Sam's Club? It is right by the Jackson's car wash. I'll send you a picture.
Yeah.
I took a picture of it.
On
the east side.
So I mean, I don't want people thinking that Tempe's not worried about water, so they're just going to use it all up.
Mhm.
I don't get that idea. We're still very cautious about things, but we do feel very confident in the water supply we have available. I don't know how it impacts the rental units. I can certainly look into that and ask our engineers and maybe get back to you guys if that would be helpful, if that plays something into it with the rental units. Yes?
Do you know anything about the Shalimar golf course in Tempe?
I'm so sad.
I heard
My
they
son
were-
went there.
that's closed.
Yeah.
We just finished our last little session.
Yeah.
Shalimar's shutting down. It's gonna be condos.
It's not rezoned yet. It does have to go through that entitlement process. Yeah, and we do hear, people come to the city council meetings in their Shalimar golf course, Safe Shalimar. And that is really hard to have that change, and something that is so meaningful to so many people.
Do you think Tempe stands behind preserving green spaces and that will help? I mean, I guess I don't want to be anti-development, but because I live in that neighborhood. So my neighbors are against the development because they're wanting high density and it would more than double the size of that little neighborhood. But we just don't know, I guess.
Yeah, I would say, that all will just have to play out through that public process. So having the residents continue to come out and speak about it. Again, I've been in Tempe a little over a year now, and I do feel that both their DRC, the Development Review Commission, City Council, really does listen to the residents. They also are going to look at the general plan because the city just had its general plan adopted last November, so that's very fresh and new. So if that is looking to have some higher density, they may be looking for that as well, but I feel you'd find a lot of that compromising. I really, and again, this personal opinion, just based on what I've seen. I've been in communities where they're like, no, we're not listening at all. This is what we need to do because we think this makes sense for the city and we need this. But I do feel they try to listen, just like with the Denell Plaza. How can we incorporate some of those things that the residents, want to see? But you're probably going to see change, and that can be the hardest thing in the roles that we have in planning and economic development is sometimes people don't want that change, but there does, there's a cycle with it, and there has to be some forward movement. That can be really tough, but
What are they planning on putting in there?
at Shalimar, more housing.
Apartments?
They were high, right?
Yeah.
How many stories?
I don't know how many stories. Yeah, it's.
My son and I were driving,
We can have a lot of empty apartments that we can't afford rent.
So I think what we're starting to see,
I moved out of Tempe.
You would think
It is-
you'd want more
Because I work in my little
Right.
coffee shop instead of
Right.
church. I don't
So-
know.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of empty spots if people can't afford the rent.
So I think we are starting to see that the supply, and demand are in the greater Phoenix area are starting, at least in some areas, to I think in 2025 we'll see that level out. So it's been crazy the amount of growth we've had in residential development, primarily in apartments. And if you look at the curves, it's you know, through the 80s, 90s, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get into 2000 and it just like shoots up. The past couple of years have been construction boom. I think the latest number I saw was around 28,000 units coming online in 2025 in the greater Phoenix area.
Do they have any plan of putting housing at all in Tempe?
luxury.
No, but
Even
those are
townhomes.
condos, like
Just townhomes.
any housing, townhomes, anything like that?
You know, that's the tough part is it would have to be a redevelopment site because we really don't have any new locations. Now, Priest Yard, for instance, if that redevelops, that could be something like perhaps a developer would do condos in there or some sort of townhome development, or a for sale product.
Yeah, but it's on the water, it's gonna be super luxury.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say, you know, our ability to do a new like subdivision, unless a developer is to come in and try to buy out some sort of an area and say, I'm gonna like relay out this subdivision.
It's even Shalimar, like they have the little townhomes that are all connected.
Yeah,
They
they do.
couldn't like just continue that on? No, you're not for
Again, yeah, you know, a lot of the time you're gonna see density. It's how do we bring more people in? The more people we bring in, the better the businesses do, the more new businesses, you know, retail, restaurants that we can attract. So it's it's a tough one because I would say, you know, my time in Colorado, those communities there were very much in a no growth mode. You know, it was very difficult for anybody to get a project through because they didn't want any more density. So a lot of that was going, you know, funneling into, you know, the core of Denver or like one or two communities that were willing to take on you know, that density because others are like, no, we're not going to have it. You know, very strong voice. I think, you know, Tempe has kind of always been that one that we're open to everybody as a city, you know, and want to try to accommodate opportunities for everybody to live. But I also see your side of it where you're like, okay, but you're not giving those first-time home buyers an opportunity.
Where the people coming out of
Anybody
the
in the
apartment
middle
class.
Yeah, coming
Right,
out
like
of
the
apartment
whole
sites. Where do they go?
Where do they go? So
Like kind of like, you
No,
know,
they want to buy a
the,
house.
what's the place that's on the other side of Tempe Town Lake and you can buy the condos in there. God, what's it called? I'm
On
mind
the other
farting
side
good
of
time.
Tempe Town Lake.
On the north side of rural,
By Carvana.
Yeah, behind
Yeah.
it's like,
I don't know Carvana.
why am I forgetting the name? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's on the water, on the north side of rural, the north.
at Watermark?
Yeah.
See, and I thought that was, okay.
So you can,
That was
so that's what I'm
breakfast.
talking about, like, why isn't there more, that's a high rise and that's ownership, so it's just, like, if we could get more of those, I understand the density part of it, but for them to be able to own it and get, you know, get the resources of having the tax breaks and
Right.
things like that and wanting to stay, you know, and make that.
So the ownership market, you know, a lot of those decisions are going to be driven by the developer and what's their return on their investment. Whether they want to do a rental product or if they want to do a for sale. So a lot of that does come from them. Those are things, you know, that we, you know, as staff can certainly go back to developers and, you know, have those discussions that, hey, we're hearing this in the community. You know, does it help? Not so sure right now. Again, the condos, I think that one's just taken time.
Yeah.
And the financial markets for condominium development are pretty tough. So, and apartments are just, they've been going like crazy. You know, but now I do see that we're starting to, those vacancy rates are kind of starting to, you know, go up. We're starting to see rents begin to drop. So all of that telling us that supply and demand is really kind of coming into more of an equilibrium. And we're kind of going to reset. So maybe we start to see changes in the market because of that. That now apartment developments aren't as popular.
What is going up on Alameda and Mill? there's that, the old Riazzi's at one point.
The pineapple.
The pineapple,
Oh, the old.
cause they sold it.
Yeah, the golden
The
pineapple.
golden
Yeah.
pineapple, they
Yeah.
sold it because they opened up another one in Superior, so.
I don't know what's going on to the golden pineapple site. Can you write that one down, Lisa? Thank you. And we'll get back to you on golden pineapple and what's happening there. So, we should have brought one of our planners along. They're singing, they're singing that end of things with all of the entitlements coming through and the permitting. Some of those we don't hear about until later when it's ready to go. So,
Thank you for taking.
all right.
I know.